Welcome everybody to Planning Commission officially here on July 14th. We'll go ahead and get started with a Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Walton. We'll go for that.
Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll open it up for public comment, and just a reminder to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please state your name and address and direct your comments to the entire commission. But
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. Because of the protocols used in both public comments and in public hearings, I have both of my public comment and my public hearing on the same sheet. The first thing is my public comment. It's on item 5, packet 46 to 83 of 83. I noticed that many inconsistencies in PowerPoint presentation material presented tonight, as developed by the State of Utah Workforce Services, the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and the Wasatch Front Regional Council. On page 78 of 83, incentives and restrictions, BI, states the need to develop 5 or more strategic strategies for municipalities without a fixed public transit station, such as South Weaver. On page 80 of 83, next steps, bullet 1, states the need to amend or adopt in the general plan with a modern income housing element. Sub-bullet number 1 states that at least 3 strategies must be included for the municipalities without a fixed gateway public transit station. It appears that these instructions are inconsistent with each other. Is it 3 or 5 strategies to be compliant? It should also be noted that South Weaver City had to do the same thing last year when the legislature initiated its MIH mandates during the 2021 legislative session. They did it then, we adjusted, they're doing it again, we have to adjust again. And I'll wait till the public hearings for the rest.
okay, any others? Okay. Do I need the motion to close public hearing? No, okay. All right, item number 3, approval of consent agenda for the 6-9 minutes. Any comments from the commissioners? None. None.
I'll make a motion that we
Yep.
approve the consent agenda for the Planning Commission 2022 June.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item number 4, public hearing and action on ordinance 2022-13, South Weaver City Code Title 12, flood damage prevention. I believe we have someone. What's your name again? I'm sorry. Dana. Great, thanks, Dana. If you wouldn't mind reading us in here.
So I'm your floodplain manager. FEMA has issued, they've done new maps and a new flood insurance study. There's 6 panels that go along with the city. This is the panel that has most of the Weaver River on it. So basically they've revised the floodplain boundaries and then also gave us elevations associated cross sections down the river. The city must adopt these by September 15th, or people who have flood insurance are at risk of losing it. So that's why we're getting you this ordinance early so you can look at it and give us any comments before we take it to City Council. What we did um, I doubt anyone took the time to read 27 pages of ordinance. So the state worked with FEMA to develop a template ordinance. And then what we do is we take it and customize it for every city. So we did not just create this out of the air. We're using the state's template. And anything in here, everyone should have a copy of it, right? Yeah. Anything that's highlighted, we've have the city attorney looking at just to make sure it's all good. And some of it was cut and pasted from the previous ordinance, like things that have to do with like district court and things like that. Items in red are where the city, we got together, it was Dave and Trevor and Brandon and I, we got together and we went through, and in the template, there are what they call higher options or higher standards, and they're at your option to adopt them, such as like the distance above the base flood elevation that a finished floor needs to be at. It is always good to use a higher option. You can use 1 inch, you can use 10 feet. A standard higher option is 1 foot. So that is what we went with on this. And there's multiple ones listed through here. We just discussed them and decided like this is the higher option that we chose. So that there's like 10 pages of definitions. So really the ordinance is not as long as it might look. But I don't know, does anyone have any questions about it? Is there any information? I do have one more thing, sorry. So FEMA asked to review these before we formally adopt them. I sent this over to FEMA. She got back to me yesterday, I think. And one thing that I had deleted out of the ordinance were sections that apply to the AO and the AH zones, which are areas that don't apply to South Weber. So if she says that we should probably just have it in there just in case, I would recommend we just take the state's template and just add those paragraphs back in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But if she says it's okay, I'm just fine leaving them out. But that would be my only like contingency on that.
Would that make things, that would just mean that we would need some comment that says if we ever add that type of zone anywhere in the city, we need to adjust this ordinance, right?
Right, so if they ever issued a new map that may have an AO or AH zone on it, you'd have to go back through this process anyway. And you probably update your ordinance at that time, but there are currently no AH or AO zones shown on the map.
Since we don't have those zones, this agricultural, I'm guessing what it was AO and AH.
It's areas of shallow sheet flow and areas of shallow ponding.
Okay.
And I'll get them
The
mixed up if I
designation
tell
of
you.
the-
It's not like a, sorry, I'm just, when you say zoning, I'm like,
It's okay, so FEMA defines like your floodplain is an A zone where there's elevations involved. Determined it's an AE zone, where there's areas of shallow flooding, it's an AO or AH, and then the ponding is just the opposite.
thank you.
Nothing
Not-
like
not-
government using the same acronyms.
Yes, sorry, yes, not land use planning zones, this is FEMA flood zones.
Was there any other items that you specifically wanted to highlight for us?
I don't think the previous ordinance was actually very comprehensive. We did beef up the section requiring the floodplain permitting. And we also are asking to use the best available data, which is basically, it's another higher standard, which basically says that if the map is kind of lacking in an area, if someone knows that that area has flooded, we can use historical information to determine that that is subject to the flood control ordinance. That would be kind of the main things I would point out.
Any questions?
So yeah, we didn't get a map.
Oh, yeah, sure. Anything else you'd like to?
I have all the panels if you'd like to look at them. And I've got a stack of the stuff that big. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll look for, I think it's a motion to open public hearing or just open it. Yeah. motion. I feel like I need to know this by now. It's okay. Can I get a motion to open public hearing then?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on ordinance 2022-13, South Weaver City Code Title 12, Flood Damage Prevention.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Nice awkward pause. Just have to say. Oh, public hearing is open, sorry. They were waiting for your cue. Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
I can't do it until you do it.
Yeah, I'll get it right when it's time to move on.
And now I have part 2. This is item B, agenda item 4, packet pages 30 to 45 of 83. I have 2 general comments regarding the formatting of this official South Weaver City document. Both impact the text and content in chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. My first comment is one that I've expressed in the past. In official documents, there should not be an A without a B, and similarly, no 1 without a 2, etc. Otherwise, a reader may be expecting to find additional information. Another comment is one I've also made in the past and was affirmed by the mayor, is that even though an acronym is defined in the definition section, it should also be redefined when it is first used in the text of the document. Since this is a total replacement of a South Weaver City Code document, I believe it would be best to have this document as complete as possible. And I just thought about another one. Another note is that flooding is also addressed in the general plan. So there's a section in there on flooding. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, look for a motion to close public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, open up for comments from the commissioners. Gary, I'll start with you.
I think this is pretty straightforward. We have a template that the state develops. We've been working with FEMA. I don't have any comments. I think it's well done and it's pretty straightforward.
Which one?
Just would like to see a map to know what updated. Was there big changes, little changes?
Would you like to bring
Roughly
the
the same? That'd be great.
Do you have a before and after?
I did not bring this format.
Okay.
But it is not changed drastically.
Okay.
So this is the one that this is the most. These are old areas. This is our just for reference. That is the boundary on that did change. They are under their term, they're non-negotiable.
Okay.
So that's mainly the thing that changed.
Okay.
Enter these into.
Yeah, we'll have to, you can send us a digital version and we'll just put them in that.
So I'm seeing this and to Paul's point, is this a substantial enough change where we have to amend our hazards map within the city general plan?
No, I wouldn't think so with the general plan is not a accurate depiction of every area. It's a general hazards area, and so it doesn't change that drastically.
He wants to explain what he stated.
Sure, go ahead, Paul.
Okay. In the general,
If you don't mind.
since this is a Hallstrom 2527 Deer Run Drive again. In the general plan, there was aspects of flooding that were not initially addressed. And that had to do with flooding caused by earthquake and upstream dam failures. And so that was something that was worked into the general plan later on. So there's localized flooding and then there's flooding. And that's what I meant, that it's in the general plan, that that should also be looked at, because if you had consecutive dam failures from Clear Up all the way down to Echo, you had failure at Lost Creek, you would end up with a 50, 60-foot wave by the time you got to the mouth of the canyon. And that would be minor by comparison.
I would fill up the gravel pit.
There we go. Got a lake. And then we have new river frontage. We are actually in the middle as staff, in the middle of a hazard mitigation planning process with our consultants for, basically it's to provide us for FEMA granting, but that will also inform any changes that we need to make to our hazard maps as well into the future. What we've seen in that process is that the maps that we've received from Jones and Associates are actually more detailed on our flooding than the FEMA maps that they're using for that hazard mitigation plan. So we're actually in the process of that. And as we see the need to update the general hazard plan, because again, the general plan is just a general idea of these are the potential hazard zones and not necessarily specific down to the latitude and longitude of each area. Does that make sense? So we'll use that information in the hazard mitigation plan to inform the general plan if we need to update that. In the next few years, we'll be hitting the 5-year mark on our general plan update, and so we'll have to look at what updates we need to make to that plan anyway. So
I might have missed it. The hazard mitigation plan will utilize the updated FEMA maps.
It'll use updated FEMA maps, but also it'll use maps that are provided by Jones and Associates on other flood hazards. And so as we receive those, we'll start implementing what we need to do inside of our own planning documents.
And
into
that's
the
a work
future.
in progress
It
right
is a
now.
It's a current working process. We just had a meeting on it today. It was thrilling. 2 hours of, what about earthquakes? What about?
That was my
And that's
main
what
question.
big concern was.
That was my main question, is just how we memorialize it beyond just the code. Just
Mhm.
how we get that map into the city code or general plan or wherever it was gonna be. So thanks. Okay. Any other questions? Yep. Commissioner Wilson.
Mine was only the time frame that's taken place from when the previous update was made with recommendations. Are we out of kind of the normal time frame for making these updates? It was just a general question that I had. Or are we kind of still within the time frame when, you know, how floodplains and all of that get updated for insurance purposes and things like that?
Would you mind stepping up to that?
Sorry.
Michelle will just be mad at us if we do it for Michelle.
FEMA is actually extremely random in when they update their mapping and stuff. So only when they update the map in a certain area do you have to do anything with your floodplain ordinance. But when we, you know, like I'm going to recommend that other cities, you know, use this new template because it's a good template, and they, you know, a lot of floodplain ordinances are lacking, but there is no specific time frame.
Okay. And as far as you said, the adoption needs to take place by September 15th.
Yes.
So that we don't, obviously, anybody that's currently using floodplain insurance doesn't get at risk for not being insured.
Correct.
Random question, do we know how many people in South Weaver actually have floodplain insurance or flood insurance? Thank you. Just, I'm just trying to think like how much of an impact is this really going to be? Like if we don't get it adopted by September 15th, obviously not us, city council, because we're recommending approval or not, but just curious.
I
Do you know?
So here's one.
One? Okay. One,
There you go.
there we go. Okay.
And
Just for me.
if
I
I
know everyone-
get to add to that, it's not just people who live in the floodplain. You can get flood insurance, like if you live at the mouth of a canyon or something and you feel like you're at risk, you can purchase a flood policy, even though you're not in the floodplain, and still be covered.
Yeah.
Correct.
There you go. Might be a plug for people to get insurance. Okay. But some random questions.
I'm glad you're not
I
an
didn't
insurance
have
provider.
any insurance.
South Weaver City is not there.
I am not an insurance salesman. I have no representation for flood insurance. That was all for me.
Thank you. Commissioner McFadden? No. I was excited that I remembered your name this time, so I'm heading in the right direction. I didn't have any questions. My comments are very similar to Commissioner Boatright. I feel like this is very comprehensive. And we still have plenty of time to make little adjustments here and there to tidy up the language. So I think we're in a good spot. So I don't have any additional concerns. Thank you, Dana, for coming and giving us that presentation. Appreciate it.
I love learning the acronyms that were in there. Cloners, freeboard.
All right, so if there aren't any further questions, I'll look for a motion to approve this recommendation for the city council.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. You're good? Okay, go ahead. Commissioner McFadden.
Just to decide if we want that in there or not in there.
Yeah, so I guess that's, so let's decide on that. Are we okay with the AO and AH provisions being removed?
No, they want it included. Wasn't it included? Putting them back in because they've been taken out from the state template. Okay, make sure I understood that correctly.
Okay, so just a point of clarity here, Commissioner McFadden, since we ended up debating this real quick, and since you started the motion, you would want to either finish your motion or redact your motion, and we'll start over.
I will finish my motion to recommend ordinance 2022-13, South Weaver City Code Title 12, flood damage prevention, including the OA, AO, and AH, FEMA recommended zones.
Okay. I second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Okay. You good? Okay. Item number 5. Thanks again, Dana. Did you want to say something else, or is that AOA? Okay, got it. Okay. Yep. Item number 5, information discussion, moderate income housing update. And just so that there's clarity here, this is just to kind of start discussions because I know we're on a timeline, right? And I'm assuming you're going to go over that. So I'll turn the time over to Trevor to go over his review, and then we'll open it up. Thank you.
Okay, who is so excited that we could talk about this?
So excited.
I've been looking forward to it.
Bouncing out of my seat right now.
So HB 462 is basically SB 34 plus, right? Is what they've kind of deemed it as. HB 462 requires each city to update their moderate income housing plan with delineating the new set of options that are available to the city in their menu of options that are available. Kim, do you want to go ahead and pull up that PowerPoint? It should be, you know. So I think we all have lots of feelings about the state and the moderate income housing plan. But as a subdivision of the state, we get to follow state law. So that's what we're doing tonight, is we're making sure that South Weaver is compliant. South Weaver is actually specifically named as one of the cities that needs to update their moderate income housing plan. We were one of 84, so it wasn't like they just picked on us, but
Naughty list.
it is basically it was the cities that were needing to come into compliance for the ordinance. And not that we were out of compliance, but they specifically wanted to list the cities that they wanted to update.
So
So
are we selected or were we targeted?
we'll
one?
just go with selected by the state. We'll go selected. Now, as Kim's pulling this up, there we go. I won't go into a ton, like it's pretty self-explanatory once we get into it. Go ahead and advance, Kim. It creates new and modifies existing requirements for certain municipalities. Moderate income housing plan provisions apply to the same list of cities as SB 34 did too, so we were selected for that one as well. It was approved in 2022, and so we're here tonight to go forward with it. Kim, do you want to advance the slide? All right, so here's some highlights, just some overviews. It clarifies moderate income housing requirement and timing to amend your general plan. Requires the inclusion of an implementation plan to bring the MIH element to life. So this is new. We weren't required an implementation plan. The reporting each year was these are still our steps and go us. In the future, they're going to require us to report on our implementation plan and how that is affecting change within the community. So that is a new one. So as we're talking about the options tonight, we need to think about the implementation plan. There's a lot of different ways we can implement some of these initiatives. So some of them may seem really scary at the face value, but there's ways that we can handle them and not be super scary. What it doesn't do is it doesn't require us to put in 60-story apartment buildings, right? Like, it does not require that. And so I just want to clear the air right now. It's really important to denote that this is a moderate income housing plan. The moderate income housing is defined as 80% of the median county income. So 80% of our county income, which is in the 90,000 range, is our median income, is really like a 70,000-ish range of an income. So it's not low income housing. It's not Section 8 housing or HUD financed housing, although there are elements that could be brought into using those programs. It doesn't require the inclusion of those properties. It's really just allowing for the creation of moderate income housing within the area. And we can have a lot of philosophical talks of whether the legislation will actually make a change to that or not. That's not necessarily the goal of tonight. You know, if you need to say your piece, I understand that. But we just have to look at the list. Outlines the annual reporting requirement. That's for me to report each year to the state. I have to report by October 1st every year. It used to be December 1st. Now I have October 1st. So lucky me. And then it adds priority incentives or restrictions for compliance with the MIH requirement. What those are is that there's some TTIF or TIF funding, tax increment financing funding for transportation projects. We right now aren't looking for that TIF funding. And so in order to be selected or be considered a good candidate for that funding, we would have to be required of having 5 or more menu options selected. But we, since we're not seeking that funding, we're just held to the minimum, which is the 3 selections.
Is TIF the same as TUF?
No,
It's different.
TIF is tax increment financing. I can't remember what the TTIF is, but it's pretty much the same. I think it's transportation.
Okay.
Transportation tax increment.
So in
financing.
order to get the TIF, we have to have 5 or more
Correct.
selected? Okay.
Right. And right now the city is not pursuing that. But I guess we could in the future if we don't see a need for that project, for those projects in the city. A lot of times you'll see those with like transit-oriented developments and things like that, where they're trying to make transportation hubs and build around the transportation hubs.
Isn't it more than
That's
just transit though? I mean, it's also, transportation to TTIF is not just roads and bridges and transit. It's also like active.
Right, it's active transportation, and which is trails and connectivity that way as well. But right now we're not looking for that, and so the 5 is not the goal. In the future, if we're looking for that, then we would need to bring it up to the 5. But that is not a goal tonight. We're looking for 3. Go ahead, Matt. So I would like to remind us with what Walt Disney said: the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing.
slides.
That was the best one. I knew Gary would appreciate that. He and I are both Disney fans, and he's really a fan of not talking and just doing so. My wife told me not to talk very much tonight, so I'll try my best. All right, so here's the menu selections that we currently have, right? So I put the letters on there denoting which option they are. So option B is what we selected, which is facilitate rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that will encourage construction of moderate income housing. We've selected L, preserve existing moderate income housing. U, apply for programs administered by a metropolitan planning organization or MPO or other transportation agency. The new comparable sections are, the new B is demonstrate investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing. So changes some words, adds a little more action verbs in there. That one, as I've highlighted, it feels as if we can continue to have that initiative. We're actively improving our infrastructure, our roads, our water, sewer, stormwater areas, and so we can demonstrate that fairly easily for the moderate income housing element. The new L is a combination of L and K in the previous, and it's preserve existing and new moderate income housing units by subsidized units by utilizing a landlord incentive program, providing it for deed restricted units through a grant program, or establishing a housing loss mitigation fund. As we read that new one, it doesn't feel that that fits within the goals of South Weber City. So I don't have that highlighted as recommended continuing it, because we don't have those programs in place. We don't have a landlord program in place. There's a lot of things that we could do. Now, that being said, we can choose to go with that option if that's the one that you want to recommend and the city council accepts it. But I don't feel that it really fits within South Weber. And then strategy U was discontinued, so we can't use that one. So here's some potential feasible options. So I went through the list, and this was in the packet of all the options. I went through and highlighted the ones that were potential or feasible for South Weber City. And when I say feasible, there's options like providing incentives and things like that, but we do not have the funding sources for those. And so, and to set up a CDRA board wouldn't be advantageous for the city because we don't have CDA areas. Also, the state has removed the ability to collect tax increment financing for incentive projects for retail. We can do that for multifamily and mixed use projects. And so, so we can do that, but I don't think that that's a good feasible option. Do you have any questions on that, Commissioner Losi?
Nope. I'm just trying to place it into the little 5-second educational lesson I just got on the incremental component. So
I am a big fan of TIF. I've done TIF projects in Weber County, and I think they're very successful. But I do agree that we're not quite, our britches aren't quite big enough.
Yeah, that I think the reason why we would want to do TIF would probably to incentivize retail to coming into the city.
Yes.
However, with that option now being taken from us from the state, they removed it in the last legislative session. We can't use it for retail unless that retail is part of a mixed use facility. So, or I'm sorry, mixed use zone, right? So, but that mixed use zone, they have to have a significant amount of residential properties in it in order to use tax and increment financing. Anyways.
So pretty much in South Weber, the only area that would even work would be the Gateway.
Correct.
South Weber Gateway. And potentially what could go in.
Well, and that's the thing is that because they're already entitled and they're already moving through the process, then it's less likely that we'll create a CDA for that area to create tax increment financing to
Okay.
Yes, this is why I'm saying it's probably not a feasible option. So we're going to go through some potential feasible options, but I wanted to just kind of detail why not everything is presented tonight, because some of the items just don't work, right? That we can talk about them, but for the sake of Walt Disney and Gary, let's talk about the things that we can do and not the things that we can't. But if you want to ask questions about all of them, we can. But yeah, so I went through and highlighted on each page, and then I transferred it over. So here's some feasible options that we have that we'd be able to implement. Now, when I say feasible, I do not mean they're recommended by staff. I want to just put that out there, that these are not me saying these are the ones that I would choose. These are the ones that are feasible for the city to do. And lucky you guys are, as you're the recommending bodies to city council on which ones you would pick for the city council to consider. So the first one is rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. Now, when we look at our zoning in the city, RP and R7 are most likely those zones that would provide that moderate income housing component. The housing prices are more likely to be in the range of a moderate income housing product, right? We're seeing our single family housing, new single family housing stock and on the third or fourth of an acre that's selling for 750 to 850,000. Right now, that would be outside of the 80% income range of the
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So we're looking at the $400,000 to $500,000 range, right, in the housing type. So that's just a frame of mind to think about. That's where our R7 is with 7 units an acre. There's a potential for that. But again, it's showing we would have to show an active resolve to start rezoning the areas to provide for that. So that's just something to consider. ADUs, we can create or allow, it's supposed to be create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. Right now, we don't have a detached accessory dwelling unit code. And so that is a potential option to implement a detached accessory dwelling unit code, or we can look at our IADU ordinance and reduce the restrictions on that ordinance. Now, I don't feel like our ordinance is overly restrictive in any way. And so removing a few lines would suffice, but then that would check off that for the next year. And then we'd probably be expected to implement a new.
I have a quick question. How can you have an internal detached? Is there supposed to be a comma?
It's supposed to be a slash.
Slash?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm like, that's not possible.
Internal detached. Yeah, it's a new thing. That's
New concept.
yeah,
Just real quick on that
from Dr. Streams.
Are you saying that,
if we go with the IADU option, that we're gonna have to continuously make some kind of change or improvement annually to comply with the code?
So as it would be, since these are all active words, right? So create or allow for, we would have to and reduce, right? We would have to be consistently making updates to that. So if feasibly anything we do with an ADU, this year we could allow for external accessory dwelling units, then we'll report on that and saying we did that, and then the state's going to expect us to select a different option to continue to make progress. Does that make sense? That's what I would assume. This has come before the legislature every year, and every year they seem to want to crack down on more and more and create more, tighten the wrench on it. So, so feasibly, with all these being active words, if we've completed it, then it would no longer be part of the plan because we've completed that plan. There's provisions. This is one is listed here, but there's two technically, but they're pretty identical. One deals with transit investment corridors and one does not. So they're very similar. Now with this new code, we have to select 3 distinct items and we can't select 2 that are the same. So that's why I've listed one. Basically, it's removing that transit investment corridor. So zone or rezone for higher density or moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors, commercial centers, or employment centers. And like I said, you just remove the transit investment corridors and we would have the next option there. Here's 3 more feasible options: is that amend land use regulations to allow for single room occupancy developments. It would be a motel, hotel, long-term rental situation. Tiny homes, yes. Tiny homes all stacked together on the same property. So I don't know how feasible that one is either, but I mean, it's feasible. I don't know how practical it would be for South Weaver. Impact fees, we can reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing. There's a transfer of rights. So create a program to transfer development rights for moderate income housing. What this means is that let's just say the west side of town is designated as an area that you can transfer their development rights to the east side of South Weaver City. What that means is if I want to develop in the east side and I am allowed 7 units an acre on my property, but I want to actually do 14 units an acre, then I can purchase the development rights from the agricultural property, the other residential property on the west side of town, and they can transfer those development rights over to my property. Very crazy and a lot of headache to manage a process like that. We talked to Jamie and he kind of went, well, we don't want to do that route. It is technically feasible. I don't know if it's a good fit for South Weaver. So those are the 6 options. If we want to go back, we can talk through them. Those are in general the 6 options that are available to us that would be feasible. We can go through the other ones if you had any other ones that jumped out to you as you read through them, but this is our time to kind of talk it over. What I would expect tonight is just a general idea of where we're looking at, so that by the August meeting, we can formulate a recommendation to the city council on which items to put in and a general implementation plan to move forward with those items. And then we need to have this all in place by October 1. So the city council will then consider it in September to adopt as our moderate income housing plan with the new options. So that's all I have. I know it was a big brain dump. But.
No, thank you, Trevor. I think again, what you reiterated is just a discussion. We're not making any decisions today, but just maybe help take us down the right path, right, before we do something official. I will open it up for comment.
I just said there's not a right path. I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit. We keep voting in the same people expecting change. Yeah, this sucks. Sorry to be direct.
Be more direct.
Got the state legislature telling us what our community should be. And I know we've got some developers here who are probably completely disagreeing with me, but that's okay. But these are just, you can tell a developer wrote this law.
Do we know who wrote it? Just curious.
I had that pulled up earlier today. Let me hold on. Waldrop and Andrick were the two that Waldrop and Andrick are the two that sponsored it.
And Andrew?
Andrig.
Andrew, thank you. I'm like, who's Andrew?
Anywhere.
No, I might have some later.
Commissioner Walton.
I just have some questions about the item H, the parking restrictions.
Oh yes, that is one. I failed to put that on there. The main reason why I didn't put that on there is the mixed use, and we just went through a parking regulation to make sure that we have an adequate larger amount of parking. So I felt that there probably wasn't an appetite to then take that back down. Also, another item that I don't think this doesn't make it feasible for South Weaver Drive is that South Weaver City is a drivable community. We inherently have to drive out of the community to get anywhere, right? There's no, I mean, we do have the park and ride, but it is not a a really accessible community for public transit and being a walkable community. And so that's kind of where I was sitting at. I don't know how feasible that would be. Also, we just went through to modify our parking ranges. So, but that is an option. What Commissioner Waldron is saying is amend land use regulations to eliminate or reduce parking requirements for residential development where a resident is less likely to rely on the resident's own vehicle, such as the residential development near major transit investment corridors or senior living facilities.
Yeah, so like, that would definitely make sense along like a front runner station corridor where you have like 100 units per acre and larger in that area.
Yep.
But that's not. Yeah.
What does, I understand that completely, is or senior living facilities. And I don't know what kind of lever you can pull to really facilitate the reduction in housing cost with that kind of strategy. But it's there, it's available to us, right? It's not, again, it's philosophical on whether or not it will actually achieve the means,
Well,
but it is an option.
to piggyback off of that comment, if I understand the requirement that the state is putting out, it is saying, do one of these things. Meaning, want to change your code in such a way.
Mhm.
It's not saying build a senior living center with less parking. It's just saying,
Reduce the requirement.
yeah, reduce the requirement. And so, you know, I think that's a step back saying, hey, you know, I think that there's some options here that we can maybe put forward that, you know, we can put in the code to say, it's there, state, it's there. And whether it's feasible or not in our community that will ever come to fruition in development, we don't know, or the likelihood may be really low, but we've checked the box, if you will.
How would that show up on your annual report?
That we amended the code to reduce parking requirements for senior living facilities.
But is that considered an active? Because
We
we
did
don't,
it.
we did it,
We did it.
like, check the box, because I don't think we're gonna be putting in another senior facility, living facility. We got the one,
You never know.
we're not,
So
only have so much space.
that's one. I also had a question about the joint acquisition agreement with another municipality. And why was that one not considered in your analysis?
Let me pull that one.
It was item T.
Ratify a joint acquisition agreement with another local political subdivision for the purpose of combining resources to acquire property for moderate income housing. I don't believe it would be in the best interest of South Weaver City to acquire, to purchase property for moderate income housing. If you feel that would be, if that would be feasible for the city to do that, I just don't know how we would accomplish that.
So I guess I just need to know why you felt like it wouldn't be in the best interest of South Weaver City to do that.
Monetary restrictions on the city to acquire property.
So would the deal have to be right for the city to make it work? Like, we're not beholden to
I can't force
acquiring the
you.
property. Right. We're not going to be forced into a transaction unless it makes financial sense for the city.
Do you
But
have,
this is just, we are entering in an agreement with another municipality that if the right option presents itself, we have that option.
do you have another city or a political subdivision in mind of who we could
Not
partner with?
particularly. got plenty of neighbors. I was wondering.
I mean, we could put it in there. The issue I was having was the implementation plan.
Right, because that is requiring more than just a code change. That is entering into an agreement.
And so it's finding a
neighbors or things like us. And
Yeah. I just see it as another option. I mean, when we have limited options, this one could be available to us, and all we're really looking at is ratifying an agreement between two similar cities.
I like how you're thinking.
I mean, I'm just trying to be a little outside the box, but
Right, because you're saying we don't have to purchase the land, we just enter into the agreement.
Yeah.
And so the agreement's there.
It has to be the right purchase, and city council gets to determine what that right purchase looks like.
We're just discussing ideas here.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing.
But it just says for the purpose of, it doesn't say enter into an agreement to purchase, it just says for the purpose of.
What do you think, Trevor? Is there some legalese there that we could get around?
I mean, you can justify anything. So no, I think it is possible. The other consideration is just staffing availability to pursue the option.
Well, and if we don't have a political group that is willing, political subdivision is willing, then
Yeah.
it kind of nukes that option.
I think we're just kind of raising the flag, something that.
No, that's mhm.
Yeah.
if we get to two and struggle getting to three options, that one might be one we just want to put forward and we explore further. Understand resources might be tight, but that just provide an option.
No, I appreciate the
So
conversation.
reviewing the other options on the list, I did want to just ask a few probing questions about our city ADU ordinances right now. Do we have ADU ordinances on the books?
We have an internal accessory dwelling unit ordinance on the book, yes,
But
not external.
But not extra.
So that was going to be, sorry. you went.
Okay, our minds may be going to the same place. There are some on here that kind of nod to external ADU, like lightning and restrictions, such as point R, which is eliminate impact fees for any accessory dwelling unit that is not internal.
They don't pay impact fees, though.
Right now, we don't have any impact fees for any accessory dwelling unit.
But could we say that we've eliminated those?
That would be a
They're
stretch.
zero.
If
Have zero
the
impact.
implementation plan would be create an accessory dwelling unit ordinance, impose an impact fee, and
So
then
there's-
reduce the impact fee.
there's-
So that's
there's
why.
five prerequisite to that, is what you're saying.
Right, we would have to have the impact fee in place in order to eliminate it.
What if we say we pay people $1?
However you want to do it. I just know that I have to submit a report and I want to be able to be honest about it.
Being creative. So, go ahead, Marty.
I was just gonna ask what, I mean, because there are external ADU ordinance options on here as well. Something that we don't have that we could have.
Right, and that's why it's listed as a potential feasible option, is to allow for detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones, or we can reduce our regulations to internal accessory dwelling units.
I like that option. I think there are people in town that may live on a, acre piece of land, or, like a 3/4 acre piece of land that may like that.
Do a driveway back to the corner?
Yep. The granny flat. I mean, there are all kinds of options.
Yeah, I do like that. So,
I have a quick question. Obviously, this is just an informational discussion, beginning point. Is this going to come forward as a public hearing to allow the citizens to make comment on the
We
various options?
we are doing our research to see how we have to pass it. As far as I can see, there's not a public hearing requirement. It's a resolution, but we're verifying that with Jamie
Okay.
right now.
Because with the
We
previous
can
Senate
do a
bill,
public hearing or for it if we want to,
Okay.
but as right now, I don't see it.
I was just trying to
requiring
remember,
some
because
of
with the previous 3 options that were selected, wasn't that, it was during our general plan update, and we very much had a lot of citizen input in terms of the various options and what they felt, which I think was beneficial. There was, what, 24, 25 total options? Is there a way for our next discussion? Because obviously, we're not going to go on with this all night, just to fine tune the high points of each of the options. Because I'll admit, as I started reading through it, I squirreled. My hair got on fire. I was a little annoyed about some of them. I got angry, probably like you were feeling, like,
Yeah.
why are we even having to do this right now?
So-
But I've calmed down. The air blowing on my head is helping. But I do just think it would be helpful to kind of summarize them so people really know what that impact could be to South Weber.
So I see what you're saying, but I'm also hesitant just to throw open the public meeting. I think we need to write
narrow.
to our council
Yes,
members.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
encourage citizens to review this if, there's anything the city can do to help explain these more, but I mean, that's what the city council is for.
Yep.
And
it does look like we do have to hold a public hearing.
okay,
Good.
do both.
And if before that public meeting, I just think obviously if we can fine tune, because there's obviously some of these that just do not fit for South Weaver. I'm sorry, we just don't have the land. We don't have like
We've got the land.
well, I'm saying land that can be supported by, because when you start getting into this here rezone where you've got the major transit investment corridors, we don't have a major transit investment corridor where there's land available. And I just feel like as reading through the list, some of these just do not fit.
So technically, we may.
We may.
We may.
The problem is
Okay.
that we do have the land, that we have so much agricultural space that isn't developed. If we were developed out,
That's why we were targeted,
so.
selected. Sorry.
So if I can, there was a couple other strategies that I wanted to ask questions about. So strategy X, let me get back to this, was any demonstrated implementation of any other program or strategy to address the housing needs identified, but it really doesn't give any specification, right, of what we want to explore here, what other strategies or programs might exist. So my question kind of runs along with accessory dwelling units, but I'm also wondering if we might implement a strategy for like multi-generational families or family housing. It's akin to ADUs, but I certainly feel like when you can bring 2 households together on one lot, that creates, I think, a pretty good situation where you're driving down the cost to either own the lot or pay the taxes on the lot, or accessory dwelling units provide affordable housing on both fronts, whether it's a smaller house for the renters or whatever, or income coming for the property owners where that makes it more affordable. But sorry.
I apologize. Where my head immediately went is how would you even track that if it's like same family, unless you require them to designate this, my son and daughter moved in with me and they're renters now.
But would they have to be renters or could they just be co-owners?
They could be co-owners. I mean, there are housing types for multi-generational structures.
So provision X includes the dedication of local funding source to moderate income housing, or the adoption of land use ordinances requires 10% or more of new residential development and residential zone to be dedicated moderate income housing.
And that was,
So we could definitely look at that second portion, but it's given the present climate on housing conversations, inclusion of moderate income housing like townhomes or smaller homes has not been met favorably. So that was just a hesitancy there. Plus, local funding sources are a little bit stretched.
so I was looking more to the 10% kind of provision within city code. Right, a certain percentage of a development could be multi-generational housing or something with an ADU already built.
Does that only apply to new developments?
Correct.
And then W. So this one, I mean, again, it kind of gets lost because you tend to focus on the mixed use components of a lot of these, but create or allow for and reduce regulations related to multifamily residential dwellings compatible with the scale and form of the detached single-family residential dwellings, or within residential zones. And how do you define walkable communities? Are we talking about you have to be so close to a commercial center, or because it has a sidewalk out front?
No,
Right.
It says within residential or mixed use. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Sorry.
So there's an and or statement that we might be able to capitalize on there too.
And again, that's an option that we can check the box with, knowing that the opportunities in South Weaver are pretty limited.
And I think when we say multifamily, could that be a duplex adjacent to other single family structures? I mean, as long as we have that provision or that language to say that it's only fits the form and function of the adjacent structures within that zone, that could be a strategy. At least in my mind, and I don't know, you have a differing opinion.
I think it definitely could work. I just have a general hesitancy on committing to reducing regulations related to multifamily in South Beaver. Just to be open and honest and frank with you, I don't know how well that's going to be received by the public.
Oh, I can
And
You don't know?
well, I do know how it's going to be
Hey.
received. But that's the general hesitancy, is that in the year that I've been here, the drums have been pretty well that we don't want to reduce the regulations related to multifamily. In fact, we want to increase the regulations
So
as much as possible. So it is a feasible option. If that's one we want to recommend to the city council, then that's the prerogative of the planning
I just
commission.
think we're right in the middle of this right now, right? Where we talk about reducing setback requirements for multifamily housing, would that be a reduction in restrictions?
Yes.
But could you limit it just to setbacks without,
It doesn't say.
You could.
The details are big.
and can the reduction in setbacks be inches, not feet? Doesn't say.
Well, we've been going through that, and you're gonna see it
I'm just
later.
saying.
It's, yeah, I mean, we're trying to figure out why we arrive at
Discussion.
certain setbacks or side yards that we do.
Yep.
So,
Can I play devil's advocate just as part of the discussion? I know this is like, they're saying we have to do this. What if we don't? What happens? What are they gonna do?
Right now, you wouldn't be eligible for any TTIP, right, or tax and increment financing
Which we don't
options,
want.
Which we
which
don't
we
want
don't
anyways.
want anyways.
Like, what are the
So-
impacts? Is it just financial? Is it now they're gonna come in and start withholding?
Right now, there's no provisions to withhold more than the incentive offerings. There's been conversation about withholding Class C road funds from
Which would
cities.
impact what?
South Beaver Drive.
Which we have no control over anyways. So is it maintenance on South Weaver Drive? Is it,
Yeah, it's just that funding source for ongoing maintenance and any improvements that need to be made on that road.
okay,
So I know we said we don't want TIF or TTIF funds now, but if we need them in, like, a retail opportunity presents itself, are we gonna have to all of a sudden, and the whole opportunity hinges on a TIF. We're gonna have to implement all this stuff just so that we can get that opportunity for TIF finance.
Yes, you would have to, it says applications will receive priority for 5 options or more. Doesn't mean that we couldn't apply for it, but we wouldn't receive priority acceptance. The other reason that we need to comply is that it's state law. So I don't think we
but
as a
again,
city
can we
want to
just say
break
no,
state
thank
law.
you?
As a subdivision of the state, we probably can't.
Try again
State law.
in 5 years?
So if
I had to
that's.
ask. I was just curious. I had to ask.
No, no.
So I have a question about you. It says, develop a moderate income housing project for residents who are disabled or 55 or older. Now, does develop mean the city develops that, or
Yep.
we allow development? Or that's
That's the
specifically
city
the city
developing.
doing that?
Mhm.
Okay. So that would, just as an example, just help me understand, I know Riverdale several years ago created a senior center with housing attached to it, so it'd be something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
So I have a question on the rezoning, one option here. So we had talked about this earlier about mansion style, like townhomes or condos, right?
Mhm.
That to me actually seems very feasible because they're very nice looking. It looks like just a huge house on a lot, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know if you guys have any experience in mansion style, is it townhomes or what is it?
Apartments or condos.
Condos, okay. I would lean more towards condos and apartments, but
Mhm.
I think that is actually a really viable option for our neighborhood because it's,
Mansion style, explain more.
so it's like you have one giant structure.
Kind of like the
Yeah.
house in Salt Lake.
That looks like a home.
Yeah, it
That
looks
looks
like
like a
there's a
house.
really large house. There's one,
Lots of gables, dormers, so it looks, like this. Um,
some of them have
And then
all
you
parking
have, like,
and
a
like a
doorway
garage
here.
underneath.
Doorway
Okay.
here,
Yeah.
doorway over here, so in essence, it looks like it's really cool mansion. And.
But they're all individual units,
Mhm.
and
kind of
there's-
like what
There's like maybe a parking lot
the
in the
one
back.
Mhm.
Airbnb was trying to be. Not to drive up.
Oh, similar, but it's
Somewhat.
much better. than
But
that.
these would be required to have all of the, these wouldn't be single room occupancy.
Not single room
Not
occupancy.
single room
So
occupancy.
they, so it could be like small condos.
Condos
or
with kitchens,
something.
rooms,
Exactly.
bathrooms, all the amenities.
So in my opinion, those are very nice. I think examples, I think you said they're in Daybreak. so you
Mhm.
can see examples
Was that
of
an
them in
option
Daybreak.
that was on the 25? I don't remember that one.
So what that would, in relation to that is, we've been having conversations about what are the allowed uses within the R7 zone in code committee. And expanding that to include things like mansion style apartment condo complexes or garden court, which are small cottage
Shared.
size, but shared amenities and shared open space. Um,
How does that differ from like a patio home? Like a garden style?
The lot would be smaller and it would front into a courtyard or
Into
a
a
garden
courtyard.
space.
Okay.
Mhm. So you're reducing the lot size, which reduces the home size, which reduces the price, right? So it would provide for that moderate income housing. So putting that available in the R7 and then allowing or rezoning properties in strategic locations to, we could even, overlay those zones and say, this is the area that we would like mansion style apartments or condos in, and directing development that way is a way that we could do that. So with multifamily options, I know when we've talked about architectural design review, if the project is multifamily, and this does not include townhome because that's technically a single family attached dwelling, but if it's a multifamily dwelling, then the city can dictate the architectural style and finishes on
But I think it's another bonus to that, going that way too.
it. Mhm.
Is we could really say it needs to look really good, right? So I think that's could be a
Concept
viable
plan.
option, yeah.
What was the item number?
That was item
You.
A, I believe.
A.
Mhm. Yes, A.
To me, I think that's a completely viable option, and it gives us a lot of control over what things look like and how it's all set up. I think city council would probably buy into that one pretty easily. And I think it's a viable option for the zones that we already have established, instead of having rows and rows of townhomes, which isn't something that is necessarily.
So you're talking like amending the residential patio or the residential 7
Mhm.
zones
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
order to, because that would then technically check 2 boxes, correct?
What would you do?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be,
Because what was the rezoning number?
A.
A, oh, that was A.
so A, well, it would be A, and then we could potentially have, where is it? Create for, allow for, and reduce regulations related to multifamily residential dwellings compatible in scale to form with detached single-family residential buildings.
So I could give us a twofer. Not too bad. That's an option.
So A and F.
Well, A and B or W. Mine's printed in black and white, so I don't know which one.
There's one for F, but
Oh,
but that's associated with transit oriented.
Yeah.
But I do have a question on that.
Mhm.
Like in the transportation planning maps for Wasatch Choices or whatever the name is, they do identify like there's in here 2040 or 2050 that they want a bus rapid transit line along 89. Now, does it matter what year that they're proposing the line, or if it has to be in existence today?
I would have to look into that. We could check to see if it needs to be a current transit corridor or not.
When they tell us to use the tool to evaluate how you plan for this, I mean, I was just looking for opportunities. There's not much for us, but there is that.
You want the real one?
No, it would be bus rapid transit.
The BRT
Yeah.
line.
Yep.
What strategies are you, so I want to make sure I.
So A, F, and is there a third?
B. Would you say B kind of tied in with A a little bit?
Yeah, B or W.
B is in Victor.
Oh, V.
Yeah.
and W.
B, I would recommend us keeping with B. That's an easy one for us because we have an implementation plan of improving our infrastructure. So our CFPs handle that.
B is in Victor?
I don't know if it's V or W because on my sheet it's in black and white, so I don't know which one is county or municipality.
B is municipality.
So V is Victor.
Yeah, but
Must develop it or adopt a station area plan in accordance with the section.
and it has to have a fixed guideway transit station.
This is on the very.
Does the park and ride count?
Hold on.
Why
We
not?
might be looking at different ones.
Well, my question is,
The little,
The buses, yeah, like where the buses come and pick people up and drop them off.
my question there is, with transit on that far outside the city, would that even count towards anything, since there's not really anything?
within the city.
It's in the city.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't say where in the city it has to be
It's-
located.
It's either V or W. It's the one that says V or W
Oh,
on
V
it.
or W, not.
I don't know
independent.
which one is the municipality and which one's the county though, because I'm in black and white.
So,
Oh, gotcha.
so V is
W is the county, that is the city one.
V has one for a county and for a municipality. One,
A, D, F, and W. Is that correct?
are you saying B is in boy or V is in Victor?
B is in boy and V is, or not V,
Not
no
V.
V, no Victor.
So B is in boy and then W.
We don't
So
talk about Bruno and not Victor.
V is demonstrate investment in rehabilitation, right?
No. The V, it's the V/W at the end.
The VW, the VW.
So that, the V on that one is not for municipalities.
Right, I just don't know which one it is because I'm in black and white.
The
So,
W.
But reference it VW. What about R? Where you eliminate the impact fees for any accessory dwelling unit that is not an internal accessory dwelling unit as defined in the code.
I mean,
so we don't have a fee currently.
I
I knew
know.
what it was.
So
So again,
our implementation plan is we don't have any.
it's zero. We have zero impact fees.
We would show no progress.
I'm okay with spinning things, but that seems like a
Is
very,
that too big of
That's
a
what-
sin?
I mean, like.
that seems like
I
a
would be willing
1260.
to kind of pair that with an ADU. There's another one in here that talks about implementing ADU.
Creating the
Yeah.
external.
And then you kind of kill two birds with one stone, because if you have one, you have the other, you've just done two.
So the reality is, whatever spinning and loopholes, I don't want to say loopholes, but whatever way we try to to kind of work around these? Because I'm sure there are, what, 83 other municipalities who are having the exact same discussions
We're
possibly?
Trying to make a fit for our community.
Well, the legislature is going to hear us, and then they're going to modify this.
That's right.
And so, I mean, it is a chess game. But if I remember correctly, we now have 2 representatives who represent South Weaver. I mean, that is a benefit of the gerrymandering that they did that we benefit from. We as citizens, they represent us as citizens, but they also represent the city as well. And I know the council has invited the representatives to come and hear the concerns. I think the city and the other cities, should need a band and, let the legislature know that we don't like this. And, as citizens, we also have, we just had an election, but, we keep voting in the same people. So if we do have a change coming for half of the city, but we keep voting in the same people expecting change. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you want change, vote these people out and get new people in, and hopefully the new people will be better than the older people. But I just think as a city, we need to hold our representatives and our senators accountable and tell them that, look, there's a city that does not like this. And I'm sure there are other cities as well that don't like this.
I hear it all the time.
So that's your job, Mayor. So
Let's powwow.
we
and let's just
support
go
you,
together
but
and say, no.
I do know the ULCT lobbying group for cities and towns.
organized.
I've been fighting this every year that we've gone through. But I think as many voices you can to get it, that would be effective.
All right, I feel like we've discussed this at nauseam. Are we,
Not ad nauseam, good discussion, but
Good.
it's beginning point.
well, I didn't mean that in a negative way.
I'm
Maybe I
throwing
used
up
the
over here.
wrong word. We discussed this at length.
Sufficiently.
Any other major points of concern from any other members that we haven't discussed? Okay. I appreciate all the discussion. I think that was actually a nice exercise. Trevor, I think that gives you some good takeaways. When would you expect to bring this back to us as far as, hey, we think this is going to get solid recognition?
We need to have the public hearing in August. So I will get some drafts out in the next week or two to you all to consider. And then if there's any major notes or revisions, then we can determine at that time what we need to do. The latest, so the city council has to ratify this before October 1. So if it doesn't go through in August, then there's a potential that we would need to do a special meeting in August to ratify it.
Like late August.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was like, if it
If
doesn't happen
we
from
don't-
planning
yeah.
commission level.
If we don't make a recommendation to the city council in August, then we would need to have a special meeting in August to make a recommendation so that the city council has the month of September to consider
Was it the 1st or the 15th?
our meeting,
No, when it has to, I thought it was,
the
had to be. the
1st of
15th.
October.
Oh, it was first, okay.
Mhm. I have to have my reports in by the 1st of October.
All right, we'll open it up for item number 6. Again, thank you, Trevor, on that. That was good. Commissioner or commission comments. I'll start with Commissioner McFadden. Anything else to add this evening? Commissioner Wilson,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner McFadden, or Walton. I'm good, thanks. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Commissioner Boatwright.
This has nothing to do really with our role as planning commission, but thank the city for the work they're doing at Canyon Meadows Park, ripping out kind of that ugly area. It looks really great. I benefit from it. It's right behind my house. It looks good. So thank you very much. Appreciate that to the employees and the city doing that.
Thank you. And I would just like to also give thanks to staff for all the hard work you guys do in putting this together. It's a lot that you guys do, so just publicly thank you guys for everything. We appreciate it. And to the mayor and others who join the meetings and to show us your dedication and passion for your city and keeping it a nice place to live. So thank you for showing up when time needed to come and share your concerns with us.
Just
Yeah,
when you're
go
done, I do have the.
Yeah.
So it is coming up on fall conference season in September, October. We have, October, I believe. We have the fall APA conference and the fall Utah League of Cities and Town conference. If you were to pick one, I would recommend the APA conference. Utah League of Cities and Town is really nice. You can talk to the lobbying group there. You can talk to other cities that do that. However, for content-wise, the APA conference has a track specifically for local leaders that really help you understand all of the nuances and things that are happening.
And those are when?
I'll have to get you the dates on them, but I believe it's in October. I just wanted to give you warning before I sent you the email so you know what you're looking for. And we'll get you the information out early so you can make plans to attend that. That will, if you attend that will count as your training for the year. So that's a good incentive to go.
We already have.
You had some of your training, but you have to have 4 total hours, and that
I
would
went to the
count.
one last year. It was really good.
Mhm.
What is APA?
American Planning Association. I know Julie was going to come,
I
and
was gonna go, I was really excited, and then Rona got me.
then, yep.
Would it make sense for us to divide and conquer on that one? Maybe?
We're going
Some-
together,
I think a big team party sounds wonderful.
the more the merrier.
Well, I was just wondering if it would make sense, because I don't know if it would make sense for us to go to both, all of us to go to both, but if some of us went to one and some of us went to the other.
I will say the land use sections get repeated at ULCT. So if you miss one, you could go to the other, but if you can make the APA conference, I would recommend that, because you don't have to just do the local leaders. You can go to all the other sessions with me as well. So,
And ULCT usually has a presentation at APA.
right, ULCT normally has a presentation on what everything's going on. So
So you're saying that that is a waste of time?
I wouldn't say ULCT is a waste of time, but it is more geared towards city council and city staff. And in fact, it's geared towards city council majority. But ULCT is good, but I think for the planning commission, APA is a much better option because it's very relevant to everything you're doing. They're talking about all the changes with the state legislature. They're talking about, moderate income housing. They're talking about different housing solutions like mansion style apartments is something that they talked about in the last conference, or garden court, or what they call the missing middle housing, which is moderate income housing is what we're looking at. So it's a good opportunity. So just watch for that email. I'll send that out to you, and just let me know. We do have the training budget to go to either, so or both. So if you want to go to both, you can.
Yeah, I think I would like to go on that.
I'm going.
Send us that date.
Yep, I will send you the dates.
Somebody wants to come with me to APA, maybe you're
Where are these located again?
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake City, or Salt Lake County somewhere. APA normally jumps from different places in Salt Lake County, but it's in Salt Lake County.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.